Well, good afternoon. Welcome to the fourth webinar in our series. My name is Bibby Bailey. I am the Executive Director here at the Parkinsons Association of Alabama. It is with great pleasure that I welcome today Michael Ford. Michael has been a financial advisor with Raymond James since October of 2014. And Michael has over 15 years of experience in the financial services industry. He has developed and refined a process that puts together the pieces of the financial puzzle for his clients. And this process helps Michael's clients so that they are well equipped to handle the challenges that they encounter with each stage of their lives. Michael is involved in the community. He serves on the board of Junior Achievement of Tuscaloosa County. And he also serves on the board where I was fortunate to work with him and get to know him at the West Alabama chapter of the American Red Cross. He is also a Rotarian, and he is with the Tuscaloosa Morning Rotary Club. Michael is a native of Birmingham. He graduated from Bowdoin College in Brunswick, Maine with a Bachelor of Arts degree. And he went on to receive his master's in business administration with the University of Alabama. He moved to Tuscaloosa in 2000 and he has lived there ever since. Michael has been married to his beautiful wife, Caroline, for over 2 years. And he has a 15-year-old son named Alex. His main interest includes spending time with his family. He enjoys sports, particularly college football and college basketball. And he loves to travel. He enjoys music. I look forward to Michael's presentation today, and I'm sure that all of us are going to find it extremely informative. Michael, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule today to bring us this information. And really, without further ado, I'm very happy to introduce to everyone my very good friend, Michael Ford.
Well, Bibby, thank you very much. That was a very kind introduction. And I want to let you know you've got a great leader with the Parkinsons Association of Alabama. So, Bibby, thanks again for having me. And so today, I want to welcome everybody for joining us. We're going to talk about how sound financial planning can guide families through the complexity of a long-term care event. Over the next hour, I'm going to share a lot of valuable information. And we'll reserve some time for questions and answers. So since we've got a lot to get to, let's go ahead and get started. The lady you see pictured here was my grandmother, Tula Fulford. My grandmother lived a very full life. Very fruitful life. Interestingly, her claim to fame was she was Miss Alabama in 1943. Her talent was opera singing. She won the Miss Alabama competition by singing Carmen. She went on to Miss America and won Miss Congeniality in Atlantic City, New Jersey. She got a contract offer to sing opera shortly afterwards. I guess great thing for me that she turned it down, because I wouldn't be before you here today if she had accepted it. But she decided to return to Birmingham, where she grew up and where she was going to college at Birmingham Southern, where she finished. She sang opera locally for many years and was very involved with in the community through leadership positions. Among several charitable organizations. She was very socially active, was the belle of the ball, the life of the party, never met a stranger. Everybody loved Tula. Well, in 2006, she was diagnosed with early onset dementia, and her condition progressed slowly for a few years. She had she was diagnosed with cancer in 2011. In 2012, after radiation, she had a surgery that she didn't take to very well. And so her condition progressed rapidly to Alzheimer's. So over the next 6 years, she was in a long-term care event with Alzheimer's disease. The first year, she had caregiving at home. That didn't work very well, so she went to Kirkwood by the River, where she resided for 4 years. And then finally, she spent the last year of her life at Fairhaven. So she went from memory care to skilled nursing to memory care, and eventually into memory care to assisted living to memory care, and then to skilled nursing. And she passed away at the age of 95 in July of 2018. It was a very emotional time for my family. It was gut-wrenching to see such a vibrant personality become a shell of herself as the disease progressed. And some very hard decisions had to be made. In addition, there were large financial costs associated with her event. It cost, when it was all said and done, over $500,000. My grandmother really wanted to leave an inheritance to my mother, her only child. But by the time she passed away, not only all her money had been spent on her care, but my mother had to pay my grandmother's final expenses. My grandmother would have been absolutely devastated if she had known that. So because of this experience, long-term care planning is a focal point in my practice, and it's something that I address with my clients regularly. So this afternoon, we're going to talk about long-term care events, the challenges associated with them. We'll start with Parkinson's disease. We'll move into the importance of financial planning. We'll talk about different longevity planning resources that are available that you may not be aware of. And then we'll close with estate planning before we get to questions and answers. So with Parkinson's disease, and I'm sure everyone on here are well aware of the different stages of Parkinson's, but you can see in stages 1 and 2, the earlier mild Parkinson's disease, where medications effectively control symptoms of tremors and mild changes to one's gait and posture, and individuals continue to be able to manage their own activities of daily living. Because they're able to do so, they're able to manage their own activities of daily living. We're not in a long-term care event at this stage. Stage 3, which is the moderate stage, where balance issues arise and occasional freezes occur. Individuals are, for the most part, still able to complete their own activities of daily living, albeit at a slower pace. It's when we get to stages 4 and 5 where the long-term care event officially occurs. The later, more advanced stages where non-medical care becomes essential and assistance is needed to perform the activities of daily living. That's when long-term care is provided. That's where it's needed. So generally speaking, when somebody's not able to perform at least 2 of the 6 activities of daily living, as you see there, bathing, dressing, eating, transferring, toileting, continence, then they're in a long-term care event. So 2 or more of those activities. And then if they're not able to perform the instrumental activities of daily living that we so easily, or many so easily can take for granted, household chores, meal preparation, managing money and paying bills and shopping. So when I meet with families, I ask them 3 questions with respect to long-term care planning. Number 1, where would you want to receive, in the event, if you went into a long-term care event, where would you want to receive care? That'd be the first question. Second, who would provide it? Third, how would you fund it? So most people, on the first question, where would you want to receive the care, most people would prefer in-home care. A few choose outside the home, and even those who choose in-home initially may end up, with care outside the home. So the most common care that you see is informal care. So that answers the question, who provides the care? So a lot of times it could be a spouse, an adult child, or adult children, friends and neighbors. You have home health care options that are available. A range of paid services provided in the home by professional caregivers. Assistance can include help with household tasks and personal hygiene, nursing care, or physical speech or occupational therapy. And then you have community care outside the home, which that's where assisted living comes into play, adult daycare, and eventually, nursing home care, skilled nursing, in which custodial care for age-related or chronic health conditions occur on a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week basis. The third question is how to fund it, which is a real challenge because, as you see here, as we'll go over, these sources before you just simply don't cover long-term care costs. Medicare only covers, and this is if a condition qualifies, they only cover a portion of up to 100 days of skilled care following a 3-night admittance to a hospital. Well, if somebody's in a long-term care event, that doesn't necessarily mean that they require hospital care. And so, in order for somebody to get any sort of assistance through Medicare, they have to be in the hospital first, and then they may receive the skilled care for a limited number of days. Medicaid, in order to qualify, you need to spend down your assets until you have next to nothing left. And care could be limited to a nursing home. With long-term care planning, you may have heard of Medicaid planning. Bear in mind, with Medicaid planning, you had to have transferred your assets out of your estate at least 5 years prior to going on or filing claim for Medicaid. Anything within those 5 years is going to count. So there's a lot of planning that has to be done on the front end if that is a viable option. Long-term care disability, if somebody's at work and becomes disabled and needs long-term care, the long-term disability covers lost income, but it doesn't necessarily cover expenses for any long-term care needs. Health insurance does not cover long-term care expenses. Medicare policies or health insurance do not cover long-term care expenses. Now, thankfully, there's what's called long-term care insurance, and so for long-term care insurance, one needs to qualify and be in reasonably good health. Unfortunately, for someone who has been diagnosed with Parkinson's, long-term care insurance is not an option. Because the diagnosis of Parkinson's disease is a disqualifier. However, for those who either have policies in place, or let's say they're healthy and they're thinking about what to do in the future, there are several types of long-term care. I think most everybody who has any familiarity with long-term care insurance probably thinks of traditional. There's some challenges with traditional long-term care. When it first came about, actuaries didn't really know how to price it because there wasn't a large enough sample size. So over the years, premiums increased several times with several insurers. There are several insurers that got out of the long-term care insurance business, John Hancock being one of them. And traditional is use it or lose it. So if you have a policy, you go on claim, physician certifies that you're in a long-term care event because you're not able to perform at least 2 of the 6 activities of daily living, then point the benefit will kick in. However, if one never goes on claim, then it just expires, just like a term life insurance policy would. In this case, traditional long-term care insurance would. when the insured dies, there would be no benefit. So with asset-based long-term care, that particular form of long-term care insurance is in my opinion, much more consumer-friendly, because it's not use it or lose it. There's a life insurance component within it, where if somebody never goes on claim, then at least the beneficiary will get an amount equal to the premiums paid into it, or even more than that. Those type of policies can be structured in that way to provide that sort of life insurance benefit for a beneficiary. If somebody does go on claim, then of course the benefits, a maximum monthly benefit amount or up to that would be applicable. So with asset-based long-term care, you're simply repositioning assets. So for instance, let's say that you've got an individual, let's say you have a 60-year-old female, and she wants to receive up to 6 years of care at $4,000 a month benefit, maximum monthly benefit in today's dollars. Then 20 years from now, that what could be $90,000, $100,000 as far as one premium in long-term care benefits, she would have a pool of around $500,000. So that's taking a portion of assets and saying, okay, well, we're not going to self-fund. We're going to cover a portion of it, but we're going to transfer a lot of the risk over to the insurance company. And then finally, for those who may have life insurance with long-term care or chronic illness riders, that's great. Say you've got a $500,000 permanent policy, and with the long-term care rider, let's say that the maximum monthly benefit is 2% of the death benefit, $500,000, so that'd be $10,000. That could cover long-term care, and there would just be a dollar-for-dollar reduction of the life insurance. And if the amount happens to be over, or it's up to $500,000, and once $500,000 is reached, then there wouldn't be the life insurance. But those are, in my opinion, two better options than the traditional. The cost of long-term care, you can see that it's expensive, from adult daycare all the way to private nursing home, and these are national averages. In the middle, you'll see home health aid service at just above $50,000. That is for 8 hours a day home care. So, for somebody needing round-the-clock care at home, I mean, you can do the math, multiply times 3, and that's over $150,000. So quite expensive. I mentioned in my grandmother's case, it costs more than $500,000, or the long-term care event. For somebody who's, I mentioned a 60-year-old female earlier, 20 years from now, if she's an event for 6 years, let's say, I mean, it could cost close to $1 million at the rate at which long-term care is inflating. And right now it's inflating about 4.5%. There are some things that I do want everybody to consider with respect to informal caregiving. There are some costs associated with it. So over 34 million Americans provided unpaid care to an adult 50 or older in the last 12 months. Caregivers spend an average of over 24 hours a week providing care to their loved one, and the time commitment increases to over 40 hours a week for those caring for a spouse or partner. 1 in 5 caregivers reports a high level of physical strain resulting from caregiving, while 2 in 5 consider their caregiving situation to be emotionally stressful. 6 in 10 caregivers report having to make a workplace accommodation as a result of caregiving. Many stories out there of, let's say adult children who serve as the caregivers, having to either put their dreams and aspirations on hold, or they're having to leave their careers in order to take care of an aging parent. And caregivers have significant out-of-pocket expenses, $7,000 annually for in-town caregivers, and $12,000 annually for out-of-town caregivers. So in the question, who would you want to provide the care? Something that goes along with that is, would you want your loved one providing your caregiving, or would you want them managing your caregivers? Here's a quote that you may have heard of before. If you don't make a plan will be made for you. It is so important to plan for the future. I know that there are lots of different scenarios that occur, but the more planning that you can do and involve your family, I think the better off you'll be. So we move now to financial planning, and I've listed some steps to create a sound financial plan. The first thing is, what's your vision for the future? That includes your expectations, moving forward in retirement. If you're retired, for instance, what are the things? What's your current standard of living? What are the things that you enjoy doing, that you're able to do? And then identify what are your concerns. What are the things that keep you up at night? So those are the things to address first. Is thinking about the future. Then once you've identified that, it's important to prioritize your goals and get it on paper. Take it from paper to paper, as they say. So you want to identify your needs and wants, and also your wishes. You don't see wishes listed on here, but I'll get to that in a second. So your needs are the non-negotiables. I mean, what do you have to live? Typically for everybody, that's food, shelter, clothing, healthcare, transportation. And then your wants are major purchases, your travel, things that you enjoy doing, your hobbies. So your wants are, you'd be disappointed if they don't. You'd be very disappointed if they don't occur. I mean, it's what gives your life, added value. Your wishes, on the other hand, could be, I don't want to say a long shot, but maybe something that you'd like to be able to accomplish, like to be able to do, but if it doesn't happen, it's not the end of the world. And then you want to identify your resources. First, your reliable income, Social Security. For those who are fortunate enough to have pensions, pensions are fewer and far between nowadays, but those that have pensions, that's reliable income. And then guaranteed income. What are some possible solutions to create a guaranteed income stream so that we're assured not to run out of money to satisfy our needs? And then you have retirement assets, savings. That could be retirement accounts, old 401ks, IRA, traditional and Roth as far as IRAs. It could be brokerage accounts, money market savings, whatever the case may be. Your home and other assets that you plan to use in order to fund your lifestyle. So you can see here, we have reliable income, as I mentioned before. That's taking care of our needs. And if all reliable income can take care of needs, great. If not, then we have retirement assets that can help fulfill the remainder of needs. And then we can use retirement assets to take care of our wants. And if we were to draw a third box down here, maybe our wishes as well. So with financial planning, the key is, and you may have heard this before, knowing what your number is. What amount of investable assets do you have to have in order to be able to support your lifestyle for no matter how long you live? And here's another thing, in thinking about, for those who have been diagnosed with Parkinson's, knowing, formulating a plan as to what those expenses are going to be moving forward. It may be, I know it's very hard to project the number of years, but I recommend giving it your best shot and err on the side of longevity rather than, something that could be a short period of time. So in financial planning, we want to be in the green area here. That's what we call the confidence zone. If you're in the green area here, that means that you've got enough in order to support your needs, wants, and maybe even wishes. If you're in the blue category, even better. Let's just don't mess it up. If you're in the purple category, that means we've got some work to do. Comfort level with investment risk is a very important consideration. You know, we know from experience this year that the stock market has been very volatile. And as you can see here in this example, we're looking at, we're reminded of the Great Recession period from November through February of 09, in which a balanced portfolio of $900,000 would have lost 30% or $270,000. So in financial planning, you know, a very important, like I said, a very important consideration is knowing your comfort level with investment risk. So when I talk about investment risk with clients, I'll ask them, not if you're comfortable with it or whether you like it. Nobody would like this, but could you withstand it? What would you do? Would you sell? Would you hold on? Would you be okay but not happy? Would you panic? And from their answers, then I can determine, okay, do we need to scale back the level of investment risk, or you know, are they comfortable taking on a little bit more risk? One thing I want to point out is that with an average return for a balanced portfolio, this is a little outdated. Right now, it's at 5.4%, so it's not as high. And then going back to results, probability of success. You know, when you get to results, you know, look at your plan in 3 different ways. You know, if we have average returns over the next how many years, can you reach your goals and, you know, major expenses over that time if the market has a steady return? Bad timing. What if the first 2 years are, what if the next 2 years are bad? What impact does that have on your probability of success? Given the reality of volatile markets, how likely is it that you will reach all of your goals? Managing risk are very important. Longevity, arguably, in my opinion, is the number 1 risk in retirement. If you, you know, heavens forbid, you pass away your first year in retirement, chances are you didn't outlive your money. But what if you are in retirement for 20, 30 years? What then? That's where longevity can become a real risk. Spending withdrawals, you know, running out of money, determining what account to withdraw from first and what our rate of withdrawal is going to be. You know, coming up with a spending plan, an income plan is key. Unknowns, the biggest unknown, the long-term care event, but you've got other unknowns as well. You know, medical expenses. What if a spouse passes away early? Other unexpected expenses. Inflation, things cost more over time. I know inflation is not high right now as overall, but when we talk about healthcare, you can see that it's inflating at 6% a year. And healthcare it seems like the categories that are most important in our lives, inflation rates are at their highest. And finally, market risk. We can't control the markets, but what we can do is plan with respect to how we're going to spend our money, what kind of investment risk we're going to take, and we be as responsible as we can. So moving on to longevity planning resources, I covered the first piece of the pie you see here with financial planning, with respect to goal planning, income strategy, wealth accumulation, and Social Security. You know, that also is a nice aspect of financial planning in that Social Security can be difficult to you know, determine what the best option is. Well, that's where financial planning can really assist. You also have other aspects of longevity planning, such as wellness planning, and there are a couple of services that are out there that I wanted to make you aware of with respect to wellness planning. Pinnacle Care, for instance, is a concierge health services provider that helps navigate the healthcare landscape and answer critical questions like, is the diagnosis correct? Which doctors are best? Is surgery necessary, or is there a better option? So each member gets an objective, unbiased advocate to guide you and your family through the most pressing healthcare challenges. Broadspire Care Management is an independent consulting firm that can help one plan for two of the largest financial factors in retirement, housing and healthcare. Their care managers are registered nurses or master's degree educated counselors with backgrounds in geriatrics or special needs who assess, recommend, and facilitate strategies for staying at home and a variety of other care needs, from minor home modifications to finding the best memory care facility. Moving over to risk management, Health Plan One is an independent service which provides personalized assistance with decisions regarding Medicare coverage. I mentioned Social Security can be hard to figure out. Same with Medicare. What's the best Medicare coverage given your unique set of circumstances? So they provide online education and decision support tools designed specifically for people who are eligible for Medicare, and they offer plans from all major national and regional carriers. So with Health Plan One, you get an unbiased advice from a licensed agent. EverSafe is a service which protects your money, credit, and identity. It keeps you safe by monitoring your bank and investment accounts, credit cards, and credit reports for signs of suspicious activity. So to help clients nearing retirement age, EverSafe partnered with experts in aging, fraud protection, elder abuse, and law enforcement to create specialized alerts designed for seniors. And then with legacy planning, you have EverPlans. It's a simple online tool that guides you step by step to organize legal, financial, healthcare, and personal information and wishes. So the program helps you build a complete end-of-life plan, ensuring your loved ones aren't left with uncertainty. You can organize and share everything from important information about your home to your family, to your favorite family recipe, to passwords to important online accounts. So you can safeguard your most confidential details regarding your life, legal documents, health and medical records, elder care details, finances, and legacy wishes. So I just wanted to make you aware that those are resources out there that can help, especially in the face of a long-term care event. Now, estate planning. As you see, there are 5 key estate planning documents that deserve serious consideration. The first is a durable power of attorney, and the durable power of attorney can help protect your property in the event you become physically unable or mentally incompetent to handle your financial matters. So it allows you to authorize someone else to act on your behalf. So he or she can do the things like pay your everyday expenses, collect benefits, watch over your investments, or file taxes. And there are 2 types. There's an immediate and a springing. Immediate is if you're faced with a surgery, for instance, then it could go into effect immediately. Springing is something for down the road. But make sure it is durable. Otherwise, the power of attorney will end if you become incapacitated. Advanced medical directives. It lets others know what medical treatment you would want, or allows someone to make medical decisions for you in the event you cannot express your wishes yourself. If you don't have this, the medical care providers must prolong your life using artificial means if necessary. That may not be what you want to do. So that's where the advanced medical directive is important. And there are 3 types. There's the living will, which allows you to approve or decline certain types of medical care, even if you die as a result of that choice. There's the durable power of attorney, or healthcare proxy, which allows you to appoint a representative to make decisions for you, or a do not resuscitate order, the doctor's order that tells medical personnel not to perform CPR if you go into cardiac arrest. The third key estate planning document is a will. That is the cornerstone of any estate plan. By all means, make sure your will is up to date. The main purpose of a will is to disperse property to heirs after your death. Now, the reason that a will is so important is if you don't leave one, then disbursements will be made according to state law, which might not be what you want. And a will allows you to name an executor or legal guardian. You don't want the state doing that. So it's very important that that's up to date. Letter of instruction or testimony letter or side letter. It's an informal, non-legal document that generally accompanies your will and is used to express your personal thoughts and directions regarding what is in the will, or about other things such as your burial wishes or where to locate other documents. So it's helpful in providing this for family members. Now, this is not it's private. It's not to be used as a substitute for your will. And finally, living trust, as I mentioned before, it's a separate legal document you create to own property, such as your home or investments. It functions while you are alive, and you control the property and the trust. And whenever you wish, you can change the trust terms, transfer property in and out of the trust, or end the trust altogether. With trust, you have a revocable trust and irrevocable trust. One thing to bear in mind is with revocable, you still have control and you can change it. Irrevocable, you're giving up control. With respect to Medicaid planning for a long-term care event, revocable is not going to work because the way Medicaid looks at it is if you still have control, then we're going to count your assets. So not only do you have that look-back provision of 5 years, but it needs to be irrevocable. And then the hard decision has to be made, well, how much control do I really want to give up? Beneficiaries, very important to have your beneficiaries on retirement accounts, brokerage accounts up to date. So types of beneficiaries could be spousal, non-spousal, or a trust. And as far as the mechanics of beneficiaries, you have your primary beneficiary. So in the event of your death, you can name one or more primary beneficiaries. So they will inherit assets in the account. You have contingent beneficiary, and it's important to name the contingent beneficiary or contingent beneficiaries because there's a chance that you may outlive your primary beneficiary. Per capita. So per capita means that, let's say you name 3 primary beneficiaries and 1 passes away. Then upon your death, if nothing has changed, then it will go 50-50 to the remaining beneficiaries. Per stirpes, it differs from per capita in that, let's say you have the same 3 beneficiaries, primary beneficiaries, 1 passes away. Then instead of it being 50-50 among the remaining 2 beneficiaries, with the 3rd beneficiary's portion will go to his or her children. So common beneficiary mistakes, not naming a beneficiary is certainly the biggest one. One of the advantages of having a beneficiary designation is the account passes to the listed beneficiary directly instead of going through probate, which takes a lot of time, there are costs involved, and it's public information. Your will, for instance, becomes public. So it's important to name a beneficiary. Naming an estate is can be an issue as far as naming an estate as a beneficiary. By naming an estate as a beneficiary, the account pays to the owner's estate and is subject to probate. Naming minors as beneficiaries, for a minor to receive money, it has to go to a custodian because the minor is not able to make financial decisions or have ownership of that money. So, and then once the minor reaches majority age, then he or she is entitled to ownership of that money. Not updating beneficiaries. You know, if a major life event has happened, what about a divorce and a beneficiary designation has not been updated? The wrong person may be getting the investment account. Overlooking per capita or per stirpes distribution. Not understanding disclaiming. So you may have a situation in which, you know, let's say the primary beneficiaries are a spouse and an adult child. Well, the adult child could disclaim his or her portion if he or she feels like that the spouse, you know, is really in need of that money. So that is an option. And then finally, restricting beneficiary designations. With that, you know, think of a spendthrift beneficiary where there may be, you know, there may be an adult child who has a problem managing his or her own money, and you know, you want to be able to put something in place to you know, make sure that he or she doesn't blow through that money quickly. So there's several action steps to take, as you see there. Gather statements, wills, and estate planning documents, diagram the beneficiary designation, take into consideration the impact of trust and spendthrift beneficiaries, identify designations subject to probate, review IRA, Roth IRA, qualified plan, and deferred annuity beneficiary designations. And then you see trust strategies here. So a trust can be very useful in, you know, designating the flow of how, you know, you want your assets to go. And the nice thing about a trust is that you avoid probate, and we already talked about, you know, some of the negatives with probate. Great way to provide for your heirs, and like I said, control the distribution of assets. It's a way to protect your assets, you know, with respect to now, if they're estate tax planning considerations. Right now, estate taxes, or the exemption, is really, really high at $11.59 million per person. So for two spouses, partners, that could be, you know, $23.18 million. Well, that will eventually come back down in 2025, and what it looks like is maybe around $5 million per person. So, you know, in the case of big estates, you know, trust, you know, certainly can help. But like I mentioned before, you know, with respect to you know, long-term care event planning, Medicaid planning, for instance, trusts can protect assets, you know, as long as it's done you know, well in advance. Another consideration is, you know, what if, you know, let's say you've got a son that you want to leave money to, you name him as a primary beneficiary, and you don't do any trust planning, and let's say that you leave everything to your son and his wife, and then they happen to get a divorce. Well, then, you know, she could claim some of those assets. So, you know, knowing exactly how you want your assets to be distributed. If there's a child in that case, maybe you want to, you know, in the case of, you know, an untimely death with your son or divorce, you know, there's some sort of stipulation where it goes where you want it, and not to, you know, let's say an ex-spouse, or, you know, let's say you know, the son passes away and then the wife remarries. Well, I mean, you know, what happens then with those assets? Reduce income and transfer taxes, and then finally fulfill a charitable intent. There may be a charity that you want to leave money to, and the charitable remainder trust, for instance, can be very beneficial and impactful. So that is a lot in a short period of time. I wanted to touch on each of these subjects. They're all very important with respect to planning and having all your ducks in a row. Certainly, there are many resources that I would be happy to provide some additional information on each of these topics. Long-term care planning, financial planning in general, longevity planning resources, any of those that really were of interest to you, estate planning. I'm happy to provide those. So here is my contact information. So feel free to call me or send me an email. If you send me an email, tell me something you learned today that you can put into motion. I'd like for everybody to leave here today. Hopefully everybody has learned something that they can take action and move forward to improve your overall financial position. So tell me what you learned, and tell me what I can provide more assistance with or additional resources. I do not share your email addresses, so they just remain in my possession. So at this time, we're going to open it up to questions. I did receive a few questions in advance. I thank those for sending me questions. I'm going to go ahead and answer those, and then if there are any questions in the chat, I'm happy to answer those up until it's time to wrap up. So the first question I received was, and by the way, I forgot one thing. Here's a quote here: "The time to repair the roof is when the sun is shining." So President John F. Kennedy was quoted as saying that, and that is so true. Plan in blue skies, not in stormy skies. So the first question I have is it possible to deduct part of your long-term care premiums from your taxes as a medical expense? The answer is yes, it is possible to do that. Of course, you would need to itemize deductions. And then you've got that adjusted gross income amount. Your medical expenses would at least have to be 10% of that in order to claim that deduction. But yes, for traditional long-term care policies, you can up to a cap, and the cap is dependent on age range. For asset-based long-term care premium policies, there are a couple companies that do allow that through their policies. Yes, you can. And for a couple other companies, no, you're not able to. Are trusts still an effective vehicle to use in long-term care planning? We addressed that before. Yes, they can be. Again, keep in mind that 5-year look-back provision, and then also, bear in mind that with an irrevocable trust, you're giving up really control of your assets. With respect to Medicaid planning, it may be well worth it. You just know that, with a revocable trust, you still control the assets, and Medicaid looks at it that way and counts those assets. With low interest rates, are long-term care policies still beneficial since premiums have jumped so much? Yes, I would say that they are. So whoever asks the question, if you have an existing policy, I think make it part of the financial planning analysis, the review, to see, run a couple of different scenarios. Does it make sense to continue? Does it not make sense to? I would err on the side of keeping it in force. I met with a lady about a year ago whose husband, she and her husband had owned long-term care policies for many years. And so 3 months before her husband went into a long-term care event, they decided to cancel their policies. And she said it was perhaps the worst financial mistake she had ever made. After paying years and years and years on it, they gave them up, and sure enough, her husband went into an event. And it was costing them lots of money having to fund from their assets. Again, asset-based long-term care, I think, is the way to go. With asset-based long-term care, the insurance company cannot raise your premiums. So that is, as long as you're funding the policy, then they have to provide you the coverage spelled out in the policy, and your premiums are not going to go up. And finally, at what age should families start planning for long-term care? I would say a great time to start is when you're in your 40s. Certainly, by the time you're in your 50s, you should definitely be planning for long-term care. I see a lot of families who wait, who are well into their 60s, and they may not be insurable anymore. And that's a big risk that they're taking, is becoming uninsurable. Plus, with respect to care insurance, it's just like life insurance or disability insurance. The older you get, the more premiums are going to cost. And again, I mean, it becomes a little bit more challenging to qualify. So I would definitely say by 50. And I think somebody who's probably their mid to late 40s is really ahead of the game and doing well. So I think we have a few more minutes for questions. Brian, do we have any other questions?
No new ones yet.
Okay. Well, we'll give it we have 5 minutes left. We'll give it another minute or so. I'm going to stop screen share there.
Perfect. No, and we'll have all of this. We'll have your presentation and the questions and answers
Okay.
on the website within 7 days, and we can send that info out to anybody that had registered.
Absolutely. Well, if we don't have any more questions, thank you again for those who are able to join us. And, again, I hope there's something that you can take away from today's webinar and can implement, to put you or your family in a stronger position as you face the challenge at some point of a long-term care event. So thank you much. Bibby, I'll turn it back over to you.
I gotcha. That's all right. Anyway, thanks everybody for joining us. We sure do appreciate the support, and we have another webinar coming up on October 8th, and please check out our website or Facebook page for more details, and we'll hope to see you then as well. Thank you.